There are plenty of game shows from the 90s and early 2000s that people remember fondly, many of which are covered extensively here on the channel. Shows that were ambitious, entertaining, exciting, or at the very least, harmlessly silly. But then there are the game shows that make you stare at the screen in disbelief, wondering how they ever made it past a pitch meeting. Well, in 2001, ITV unveiled one such show. A game show built entirely around deception, greed, and the encouragement of contestants to openly betray one another, all wrapped up in a glossy studio package and presented with absolute seriousness by former MP and broadcaster Robert Kilroy Silk. The name of the show was Shafted, and it has since gone down as one of the worst game shows in history. Lasting for just a single series, most of which was never broadcast, Shafted struggled to find an audience and left a very mixed impression. Its serious tone and emphasis on betrayal made it feel very different from most light entertainment game shows of the era, and even the potentially huge jackpots up for grabs couldn't save it from disaster. In this video, we're going to take a look back at Shafted, how the show worked, what ITV were possibly trying to achieve, why it left such a bad impression on viewers, and how it became so infamous in such a short space of time. If you're enjoying the content here on the channel, please don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe. Now brace yourselves as Robert Kilroy Silk asks us if we want to share
or to shaft.
Shafted was developed by production company Initial, part of Endemol, and the brains behind its creation were Adam Adler and David Flynn. Names you may not recognize, but they separately went on to create two of the UK's best game shows. David would be behind the creation of the £1 Million Drop, and Adam created The Cube. Sometime in mid-2001, Endemol got to work filming multiple UK and international pilots of the show in the Netherlands, interestingly on the same set as the original Dutch version of Deal or No Deal. These pilots were not broadcast on television, but footage of them surfaced online in 2013, giving us an interesting glimpse into the early history of the show. The UK pilot episode was presented by Richard Madeley, and its format was essentially the same as what the commissioned UK version would use, with a few small differences. Most notably, the number of contestants starting each game was 10 instead of 6. Although there are only a few short clips of this pilot episode, Richard Madeley definitely seemed like a decent choice of host. He was no stranger to game shows, having presented two series of Connections in 1988 and 89, Runway from 1988 to 1993, and the last two series of Cluedo from 1992 and 1993. ITV were impressed by the pilot and commissioned a first series consisting of at least 12 episodes, although as many as 20 could have been filmed. It's not entirely clear. Unfortunately, Richard Madeley wouldn't be available to return as host. He had just recently left ITV and his role alongside wife Judy on This Morning to host Channel 4's Richard and Judy. So ITV turned to former politician Robert Kilroy Silk to front the show. The episodes were filmed at Pinewood Studios in October and early November of 2001, and the show broadcast its premiere episode on Monday, November 5th, 2001. So how did the show work? Well, each episode starts with 6 contestants who have never met each other before. In the first round, each contestant has to make a bid of up to £25,000. This is the money they will take forward to start the game, and the more money they can secure here, the bigger an advantage they will have in round 2. But there's a catch. Whichever contestant is the greediest and bids the highest amount is eliminated from the game immediately, something that caught one player very much by surprise.
With a bid of £11,000, Jake Sermon, you're off the show.
5 contestants then step forward to play the main game. In round 2, the contestants are shown the first few words of a question, and they have to make a bid with their cash to be able to answer. Whoever bids the highest amount is then shown the rest of the question and must provide an answer within 10 seconds. Get the question right, and however much they bid will be added to their total. Get the question wrong, and that amount will be deducted from their total. Sometimes the questions looked like they were going to be quite easy, but the final question actually turned out to be something completely different.
Which capital letter represents 50
in Roman numerals.
Whereas other times the questions looked like they might be quite difficult but actually became much easier when the full question was revealed.
Which horse won the Grand National 3 times?
Red Rum.
It was Red Rum, and you've got £50,000, Ralph.
After 5 questions, whichever contestant has the highest total now gets to eliminate or shaft someone else from the game. Once someone is selected to be shafted, that contestant has the opportunity to try to convince the person who wants to shaft them not to do it and to choose someone else. After this, the shafter can decide to stick with their original choice and that contestant is eliminated, or they can change their mind to someone else. This was quite an interesting part of the show and kind of reminds me a bit of The Traitors, with contestants pleading their case trying to not get eliminated. In any case, someone is eliminated and the game moves on to the next round. Note that all of the contestants start each subsequent round with the amount of money that the highest earning contestant had. So if the winning contestant from round 2 finished with £25,000, all of the remaining contestants would start on this same amount in round 3. Rounds 3 and 4 are identical to round 2 with one small exception, the question shift. If a contestant makes the highest bid and sees the full question, they have one opportunity to shift the question to one of the other contestants. This can be quite risky, as if that contestant gets the question correct, they receive the amount of money the original contestant bid, and this amount is deducted from the original contestant. If they get it wrong though, then the amount is deducted from the contestant the question was shifted to. This could be used quite strategically if the original contestant knows the answer to the question but believes someone else won't know the answer in order to try and keep their total ahead of everyone else. This definitely backfired on a few occasions though.
I'll shift it to Ralph. Ralph, what is the surname of the sporting twins who currently play cricket for Australia?
War.
Absolutely spot on. It's the War twins.
As before, one contestant is shafted at the end of rounds 3 and 4, leaving just 2 contestants to go through to the final round. The top player's money from the last round becomes that episode's jackpot, and both remaining contestants now have the opportunity to either share the prize
Or to shaft.
If both choose to share, then they split the prize money equally. If one player chooses to shaft and the other chooses to share, then the shafter takes all of the money. But if both players choose to shaft, they both go away with nothing. A classic prisoner's dilemma. A short video of each contestant filmed before the show is played for them to get to know each other a little before making their decision, and then they both choose whether to share
or to shaft.
Sorry, last time, I promise. At this point, the viewers at home are shown what the contestants have chosen, but both of them, the host and the audience in the studio, don't know. Both contestants then have the opportunity to talk to each other to try and influence the other's choice. Definitely the best part of the game, especially if we have just seen that someone wants to shaft and the other contestant wants to share. Finally, both contestants have the chance to stick with their original decision or change before the final result is revealed. Only 4 episodes of Shafted were ever broadcast, and across those episodes we saw 2 contestants who both decided to share, each leaving with £51,500. 2 episodes where the contestants both shafted each other and left with absolutely nothing.
Shafted each other.
And 1 episode where a contestant shafted another and went home with all the money.
Frankie, you shafted her. You got £73,000.
The very first episode of Shafted did relatively well in the ratings, reportedly pulling in 7 million viewers. But figures fell rapidly thereafter, and by the end of episode 4, ITV had had enough. The rest of the series was pulled from the schedules and Shafted was no more. I can't think of many game shows that have lasted for fewer episodes than this. So what exactly went wrong? Overall, I don't think this format for a game show is particularly bad at all, and in many ways it had a lot of potential potential. The bidding mechanic created real jeopardy, there are quiz questions which everyone loves, the ability for contestants to shaft other players added a strong social strategy element, and the final share or shaft decision was quite a compelling psychological endgame. But I think perhaps the show didn't quite know what it wanted to be. One huge problem with the show was its runtime. It was only given a 30-minute slot, including an ad break, so everything just felt a little rushed. Giving the viewers a little more time to get to know the contestants and possibly introduce a few other rules that made things a little more interesting could have helped give the show more personality. Another massive problem with the show is the host, Robert Kilroy Silk. I think this format really needed to commit to something, either lean much more into the comedy and light entertainment, or go fully serious and psychological. But with Kilroy Silk, you don't really get either. Instead, you end up with this awkward middle ground where he's trying to do a bit of both, and neither work particularly well. It's not hard to imagine a tweaked version of this format working far better in the future. And there have been shows that have used aspects of Shafted's format since, such as Golden Balls, which also ends with a prisoner's dilemma. But Shafted feels like a show that arrived just a little too early and with too little confidence in its own identity. It wanted to be a big money game show with serious psychological aspects weaved in, but it didn't give its contestants or its audience enough breathing room for that drama to properly land. As a result, what we're left with is a fascinating failure. A game show that's undeniably uncomfortable and nowhere near as entertaining as it could have been. It's easy to see why ITV quietly buried most of the series, but it's also not hard to be slightly impressed by just how bold the idea was, even if the execution never quite worked. And maybe that's why Shafted is still remembered at all, not because it was good or successful or even particularly enjoyable, but because it was strange, awkward, camp, and unlike almost anything else that had been on British television. Sometimes that's more than enough to earn a place in game show history. Thanks for watching, everyone. Do you remember watching this when it was on ITV in late 2001? What did you think about it? Did you think it had potential, or was it dead in the water? Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. A like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you again in the next video.